What's up, everyone? As you can see, I'm wearing a Season 1 blue jumpsuit. I made this one along with all these guys behind me. I'm going to be going into a little bit on the colors, the patterns, where I started and where I'm currently at, and maybe you guys can find a little bit of help along the way. It's not much of a tutorial of building one. We'll do one of those in the future. This is more just a breakdown of what my thought process was when I first started and where I am now, all the things I've learned. A lot of it you can't just learn from watching YouTube, although I tried. A lot of it's by trial and error. You just got to do it, and you'll just get better over time. I know that people don't like to hear that. They want that instant gratification, but putting that work in, it does pay off in the end. And even learning it to a point once you get past that sharp learning curve, because I wouldn't start on a spandex jumpsuit as your first thing. I did. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't recommend it. But by doing so, it kind of fast tracked me a little bit. So if you can get through the pain and torture of that, good on you, and you'll be ahead of the game when it comes to these. And then once I started doing non-jumbo spandex things, I just was surprised at how much easier that kind of fabric is, especially with these. Actually, you can't see it here, but there's the wraparound tunics were just immensely more. They're easier in the sense of dealing with fabric and sewing it. The construction was a little bit more detailed and specific. In this video, I'm going to go over that stuff, and I'm going to start my first ever Season 1 jumpsuit. As you can see here, for my first go at it, it doesn't look so bad. I did sell it on Etsy a few years ago. I don't have it anymore, but it is my first attempt. I'll put some pictures of me making it. I don't think I took too many, but I'm gonna go over the. So in that first attempt at a jumpsuit, I used a simplicity pattern at the time. It wasn't the older one that they came out with in the 90s or early 80s or late 80s, I should say. It was a 50th anniversary simplicity pattern that they redesigned or reworked. In hindsight, it is lacking in many different areas of construction and accuracy, as well as sizing isn't where it needed to be. But I was just learning on that one. At the time, it was the best that I could find. Then probably about a year later, Alex, my friend from Taylor's Gone Wild, I'll put a link description below, he developed his own pattern of this, which was great, and it became my second iteration. And he offered sources for better color fabrics, and then I went there. That fabric for the second iteration, pictured here, that one's no longer available. It was a cranberry spandex. I'm not sure which spandex website it was from, but they discontinued that shortly after I made that one. The third iteration was the same pattern Alex had made. I just found the better fabric from Starbase 375 Logistics on Etsy. That fabric is the current fabric that I've been using. It's this here. They also do this one, and then all the reds there. I'll put a link in the description for that as well. That is very close, the fabrics and where that came from. And then from there, I want to say 2023, Alex had access to several different screen use jumpsuits, and he then made a brand new pattern, but patterning it off of the actual jumpsuits and amalgamating it into a idealized pattern, which far and away an improvement from his first version, which I believe he just did by as best he could from watching screenshots and measuring off of that kind of stuff. So this one, it captures the look, and I'm very pleased with it. And obviously I've used it many different times. I've done almost every single one of his iterations, except a front zip Mandarin collar, which that is on next on my list. I will probably do a build video on that. So stay tuned for that one. And then we come to the variants here. I actually made this shortly after my first version of the season 1 jumpsuit. This is the Cadet, as you see in The First Duty by Wesley Crusher and Nick Locarno, famously. But this was a modified, this is where I first began to modify patterns. So I modified his first version to make the first version of this Cadet jumpsuit. And then from there, I made a second version, which just had the better fabric. And then the third version is this one here, which has the new pattern, the better fabric, and I was even better at add pockets to it. I made the collar a little bit longer than the normal collar, because on the show it seemed to be longer, although I don't have any measurements on that. I made the yoke here a little bit bigger than is on this here. Like I said, it looked bigger. I'm sure it was, I just don't know the exact measurements. I kind of guesstimated the changing. That's another skill I developed over time, was taking an existing pattern and adjusting it, moving the seam lines, and there's a lot of variables you got to keep into account when you do stuff like that. Next, I want to go over the fabrics. These are all made of jumbo spandex. It is not the easiest fabric to work with. It is tough on needles when you have to put multiple layers together, as well as it is slippery, doesn't like to stay, and if you pull on it, it can easily stretch in a way that you don't want it to be. That being said, I did learn on it, and it's a pretty fraught to be your first fabric to use, but if you want to go for it, more power to you. There's probably a lot more resources now than I had available at the time. I kind of used YouTube as my guide, or if I had any questions. And in terms of colors, in the beginning, I just used the best store-bought fabrics that I could find. Once Alex came out with his pattern, he did source other store-bought fabrics, and that's kind of what I used. Although the first fabric I ever used in my first jumpsuit, it was a scarlet red, which it's a great red. It more was akin to what people would have thought it was, based on how it projected on TV with the lighting. I'm gonna go into some of these fabrics here. So here's the new updated pattern from Taylor's Gone Wild. Here's the size chart. If you want to pause on that, you can see where you lie on that. Pretty detailed, and his online tutorial is pretty great. So I highly recommend that. All these jumpsuits behind you have been made with this specific pattern. I'm gonna go into the fabrics here. I made a little fabric thing. It has other fabrics on here as well, but I'm gonna go over this black. Is just a generic jumbo spandex. I did purchase that from Spandex World. I've used other sources as well, but I found that to be the best of the black jumbo spandex. So here, earlier I was talking about the scarlet jumbo spandex I used for my first ever jumpsuit, which has the idealized color to me. This is a swatch from that. This is the second iteration, the jumbo spandex, the cranberry, which is Stretch House, which it's discontinued at least 5 years ago, no longer available. And then these two were the Starbase 375 Logistics from Etsy. So here's the blue from Starbase Logistics. These are their colors that you can get on their website on Etsy. This one here, this was a custom dyed, my first ever attempt at dyeing. I bought a Stretch House teal, and then I dyed it. I just used a regular blue synthetic dye and guesstimated, and it came out like this. And this is a store-bought blue. And then a couple of years later, another friend wanted a commission, so I tried to dye again, and I got the same fabric, and I got a different blue, but this is the blue that came out. It's still pretty good. I didn't have any. So these two are just custom dyed fabrics that I did, just going by eye and just trying to feel it out. But I do want to show you the comparison to a dyed to match season 1, which is this blue here, which is the jumpsuit I was wearing. And then this is the custom dyed from Alex as well. It's just a swatch. So you could see the 4 different colors, and they did vary on the show wildly. So when these two were 2 of the accurate ones, these I just dyed myself. So I got pretty close to this one here. And then this one got pretty close, a little lighter, but there's the Starbase Logistics in the middle there. 6 different jumpsuits I've made out of these fabrics. And then the reds, this is Starbase Logistics as well. So that's that. And then here's next to the early season gold. You can see how that changed over time. But yeah, these are my swatches. And he also custom dyes the piping. Here's the gold, red, and blue. This is what I use for the cadet. This one's available at sobizfabrics.com. Pattern, if you will, as those. So that was that. So that's it for the fabrics. The blue was had the biggest spectrum of change over the course of the 7 years. This is a season 1. As you can see, it's quite dark. And so I just want to transition between the 3 different colors of my season 1 jumpsuits, just so you can see me wearing it. I used the same exact pattern that I cut for this first one here, the red one here. Pretty much the size 38 is what I use, with minor adjustments here and there. This is the way I prefer my uniforms to fit, relatively form-fitting. I know in the show they vary between loose in spots to really tight on certain actors, but this is my ideal preference, where it's tight, it's a little bit of movement, but you know, it works with my body type. So I am grateful for that. This season 1 is my favorite. So I'm gonna do some switching out, and I'm gonna go into the red. All right, so here's the red. Same exact pattern as the blue. I kind of just want to see how how these transition in camera. The red kind of varied the least over the seasons. Kind of got a little bit switch into the gold, so you can see that one next to that one. Here's the gold. Really like this color. It's very close to a Warp Season 2. Alex did have access to it. This is a Starbase Logistics from Etsy fabric. He borrowed a Warp Season 2 jumpsuit, and he said it was almost a dead ringer for this version of the gold. As you can see, the fabric's obviously varied over the years, like I said before. Very happy with this one. Just a couple of notes about the construction of these jumpsuits. They have an invisible zipper that goes to about here, and it terminates about here, and they have the hook and eyes that clasp the rest up here to kind of give you that invisible closure type of deal. Gene wanted for the look of the show, where you couldn't see any zippers or snaps or fasteners, as well as there are very large custom-made shoulder pads in each of these jumpsuits. For me, they're the same shoulder pads. I did a reverse of what they did on the show. On the show, they had snaps on the top of the pads on the underside of the jumpsuit, and they snapped them in, snapped them out. Made an undershirt and put some Velcro on the top of that, and Velcro underneath of the pads. But if you don't, and you just place them underneath, and you have an undershirt in between, they will slide and move on you. So they kind of need to be fastened as they are. But this is the gold version, and so that about wraps it up. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit a like. If you have any comments, let me know down below. I try to answer every single one. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out, I did a Thomas Riker distressed jumpsuit. So it's this jumpsuit, but distressed. Check that out right here. Anyways, I'll catch you in the next one.